This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
One of the best things about film photography is you don't need to spend a ton of money to get into it. And one of the best places to start is through a 35mm point and shoot. And in a world of vast options, different build quality, different types of lenses, it could be quite overwhelming for someone just getting into film photography. So today I've compiled my top 10 best point and shoot film cameras, ranging from the more budget-friendly options all the way up to some of the more high-end luxury film cameras. And whether you are a beginner in film photography or if you are an advanced seasoned pro, I feel confident that there is something in this list for you. So without further ado, let's jump right in. Alright, so before we start here, if you are brand new to this channel and you love film photography, consider subscribing. I've been making film photography videos since 2016, mostly as a resource for beginner film photographers as well as advanced shooters to gain knowledge on not just film, but also forestry photography. Now this list is going to be a little bit different from some of the other lists that you may see online because it's not just going to be talking about the hyped up film cameras. We're going to be talking about film cameras that I personally have used and that I personally swear by. And some of them may be a pretty obvious choice, but a lot of them also are going to be sort of low-key, kind of sleeper cameras. With that said, the first set of cameras we're going to be talking about here on the budget-friendly side is going to be a category of point-and-shoot film cameras. And that is going to be your standard 35mm zoom point-and-shoot. Now, this is going to cover a couple of different brands and ranges from Olympus, from Pentax, from Canon. Now, the camera in particular that I'm going to be recommending today is the Pentax IQ Zoom model cameras. They make different models, but this one here is going to be the Easy IQ Zoom. Every Pentax IQ Zoom camera that I've ever bought before has not only just been reliable, but it's also provided me with some really fun results. This is great for photographers, maybe just photographing their friends, or maybe going to a concert, or maybe just doing something fun and being out and wanting to document the moment. Now, depending on the model that you get, these Pentax IQ Zoom cameras can range anywhere between $20 up to around $60 online, making it a very, very solid value for the photographer who just wants to get into film photography. Now, the next camera we're going to be talking about here is going to be slightly different from the first, in a sense that the lens on this one is not going to be a zoom lens, it's going to be a fixed focal length. Now, the camera we're going to be talking about here is the Canon SureShot Max. And this is a camera actually that I recently just discovered a few months ago actually at a flea market. Now, taking a look at the front of the camera here, you have a beautiful 38mm 3.5 lens. You have flash as well, beautiful viewfinder, and this elegant kind of boxy design. Now, the benefit of having a fixed focal length like this one here is that the lenses typically are going to be a lot sharper. And actually, I did a comparison between this $60 to $80 camera versus a $1,000 point-and-shoot film camera, and the results were shocking because they were pretty similar in regards to quality. If you want to see that video, I will link it above. But for now, that is the Canon SureShot Max, punching in between $60 to $80. Now, the next camera on this list is definitely going to be somewhat sort of a collector piece, but it still has the functionality and quality that is still going to rival some of the higher end point-and-shoot film cameras we'll be talking about today. Folks, the next camera here is the Canon MC. A legend in its time for its not only retro design, but also for its extremely sharp glass lens up front. The lens on this camera here is going to be a 35mm 2.8 lens, and it has one of the best renditions of color from any point and shoot that I've ever used. Now, I love this camera for a couple of different reasons. First and foremost, it has a detachable flash. So if you don't want the flash, you can completely kind of just take that apart, and you're left with this beautiful kind of state-of-the-art retro design. Now, I'm a sucker for boxy cameras, boxy shapes, boxy cars, boxy anything. And so when I first laid my eyes on this camera right here, kind of has that beautiful open and closed door at the front, I couldn't get enough of it, and ever since I purchased it, it's been one of my daily cameras. The Canon MC is going to run you between $70 to about $120 depending on where you get it. I do recommend scouring the used markets because they have a ton of different deals, and you might just be able to score yourself one on the Canon MC. So the next camera we're going to be talking about is sort of the curveball of the bunch. It's also the only camera that can be shot underwater. Next up, folks, is the Canon SureShot A1. Now, this thing right here looks like a toy, and it kind of feels like a toy, but a little bit more robust. I don't know how to explain it, but don't get it wrong, folks. Just because it does have an underwater housing and you can kind of see in the water and shoot pictures with it, it doesn't mean that it's not still a functioning point and shoot. Now, this camera has a 32mm 3.5 lens. It has an auto selector switch. The viewfinder also is enormous. And overall, this camera has a ton of different details that make it special. That underwater housing is very unique. And if you walking down the street with this thing, maybe you're on the beach or whatever, you can spot this a mile away. And it's an iconic underwater camera. The best part is you can find these anywhere between $50 all the way up to around $130 to $140, making it the first camera in this list to hit that medium budget friendly option. Now, the next camera we're going to be talking about here is very controversial because even though I would consider it a point and shoot, it's actually considered a rangefinder. But inside of this red case, folks, we have the iconic Olympus XA. Now, this is the camera right here that really started my love for point and shoot film cameras. Not only because of the design, but also because of the quality. The images that you get from this are absolutely insane. The lens is extremely sharp. It is a 35mm 2.8 lens, f Zuiko. And if you know about Zuiko glass from Olympus, they've made some of the best glass back in Olympus's heydays. But going back over to the camera, it does look very long, and that's only because the A16 flash is attached to it. The original flash that comes with the XA though is the A11, and that is just a little bit smaller and not as powerful as this one. But to take this flash off, all you gotta do is kind of unwind it right here, and it just comes off into two separate pieces, similar to the Canon MC, and so you're left with just this small pocket beast. Now, this camera doesn't actually have autofocus like the other cameras on this list. It actually has a fully functioning rangefinder. So this little tab here on the bottom can be adjusted, and if you've never shot with a rangefinder camera, essentially it's just going to be two boxes. One is going to be transparent and the other one's going to have some sort of hue to it. And in order to focus your lens, you need to match the two boxes together, and that is essentially how you use a rangefinder. And this is what makes this camera extremely special, because it does have a full functioning rangefinder, but in the compact size of a point and shoot. This camera is going to range anywhere between $150 to, I would say, $250 at the very top end of things. And for the collector or enthusiast, this is the camera that I would recommend getting. So that is going to be the cutoff point for sort of the budget-friendly options. In the second half of this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the more premium high-end options. But before we get into that, I want to give a huge thank you and shout out to the sponsor for today's episode, which are the good folks over at Squarespace. Squarespace is your all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Now, for less than the cost of a point-and-shoot film camera, you can create your own stunning professional website. With cutting-edge design tools, you can simply select a couple of different points and have a website curated for you within minutes. On your website, you can also create an online store, which is great for selling point-and-shoots that you may find at a thrift store or even photography prints. But more importantly, if you want to sell your own digital assets, such as exclusive videos or maybe even like online courses, Squarespace will give you that option to sell digital content directly to your viewers. And I've personally been using Squarespace for my website for about 7 to 8 years now, and in my opinion, it is the best and most easy way to create your own stunning professional website. So to get started with your own website today, head over to squarespace.com/kingjapes and enter promo code KingJapes at checkout, and you're going to get 10% off of your first purchase of a domain or a website. Huge thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Now, moving on to the next set of point and shoots, the first two here are going to be what I would call the performers of the bunch, mainly because of their reliability and the high image quality that it can output. The first camera here, folks, is going to be the Konica Big Mini. Now, I love this camera for a couple of different reasons. Again, the boxy kind of shape. But if you look up front there, it has this really beautiful protruding lens. It is a 35mm 3.5 lens, and I've used this camera in Yosemite. I've used it in, various different parts of San Francisco, and it is the camera, in my opinion, that just continues to impress. And it may be small, but the image quality that comes out of this is humongous. It is beautiful, it is extremely sharp, and it doesn't get better than this right here. A lot of times, 99% of the time actually, these cameras, as they age, the screens start to bleed and you're not going to be able to see what mode you have it in, or maybe even just what flash mode you have it in as well. So you either need to kind of guess and feel it out, or you might just need to just keep it in auto at all times. The Konica Big Mini fetches a fairly higher price point, ranging between $200 to around $300 on average. So the next camera on this list is going to punch in at around that $200 to around $350 price point, and that is the Nikon L35AF. Now, I've reviewed this camera multiple times on my channel before because there are different variations. There's the L35AF1, AF2, and then there's the One Touch series, which is the one that I have in front of me. Now, the differences in these cameras are very slight, a lot of them being design based. They all mostly have a 35mm 2.8 lens that is very, very sharp. They feature this beautiful flash that works really well. But on this particular model, you're gonna see sort of this rib texture on the left side of the camera, as well as sort of like this raised bezel that's supposed to be a grip for your hand. Now, the L35AFs are sort of a bigger camera in comparison to a lot of the different point and shoots we're gonna be talking about today. For example, this is the comparison here between the Big Mini. The L35AF is a lot taller. It's also a whole lot longer. The L35s have a very, very big cult following, even though it is kind of loud. Now, the next camera on this list is going to be the only 35mm point and shoot that is technically a half frame camera. And this camera, folks, is the Pentax 17. Now, this was a recent release from Pentax. And when it released here, a lot of people were skeptical at the image quality because basically a half frame camera is going to take a 35mm frame and they're going to chop it in half. Hence why you have a vertical viewfinder here at the front. Now, I was part of sort of the launch of this camera, and upon the initial testings taking it through San Francisco, again, I have a video about it. I will link it in the cards above. The camera actually performed a lot better than I expected. The images were sharp. This has a 25mm 3.5 lens. It's also one of the only cameras on this list that gives you a whole set of different functionalities. So you have exposure compensation right here on the left side of the camera. You have a mode selector switch where you can set it to just be a point and shoot, or you can go into the different modes like backlit situations, or maybe even like flash situations. It also has an advanced lever up at the front here, so you can advance that forward, a shutter button, on off switch. It's a zone focusing camera, so if you can see that up top there, you're gonna have different zones that you set the focus to. And this is probably the only camera on this list that's closest to a traditional film SLR. One of the best designs, in my opinion, for a point and shoot. So this one is going to run you a fairly high price point, anywhere between $500 to $700, depending on where you get it, of course, as well as if it's used or new. But if you're willing to take a shot at a half frame camera, this is the one that I would go for, the Pentax 17. So now we've reached the point where we're going to start bridging the gap into sort of the luxury film cameras. And I just want to preface this by saying there are tons of amazing cameras out there. But in regards to cameras that I've actually used, these are the only two that I feel very confident in recommending because of three different things: their performance, their build quality, as well as their aesthetics. Now, the first camera in this category is going to be the Fujifilm Class, and this is going to be the original class. Now, this is a beautiful, beautiful camera. The design, the functionality, it's all there for you. Look at this front lens element pop out here. Just gorgeous. A couple of things to point out about this camera: you get Fujifilm Professional here on the very top. You don't see that often in point and shoots. You also get this beautiful display up at the top here that allows you to adjust your self-timer, bulb. You also get auto exposure balance as well as exposure compensation. You have flash control. Now, I forgot to mention, the lens on this thing right here is very special. This is a 38mm 2.8 lens. Correction, it has a 38mm 2.6 lens. Sorry about that. And it provides some seriously good image quality, especially when paired up with this flash. And apart from the Olympus XA, the Class is one of the only cameras on this list that allows you to adjust your focus manually. Through this little selector switch on the bottom, you can essentially preset your focus to a distance and treat it like a kind of zone focusing camera. Now, because this camera is made out of all metal, as well as just the overall history and brand heritage that Fujifilm introduces into the world, this is one of the more expensive cameras on this list, punching in anywhere between $500 to roughly the $800 price range. Of course, all of this is going to be based off of condition as well as functionality. And last but not least, on this list, we have a camera here that is considered a grail amongst film point and shoot lovers. And if you guessed the Contax T2, you are correct. Now, taking a look at the lens here, it basically just opens up like that, and that's one of the most iconic things about this camera, that flip open door, revealing the Sonar 38mm Zeiss 2.8 lens that everyone knows and loves. One of the sharpest lenses that I've actually ever used on a point and shoot. At the very top there, you have the option to adjust your focus, similar to what you've seen there on the Fujifilm Class. On the left side of the camera, you have exposure compensation, very minimalistic design with Contax T2 just being the only thing on the top there for branding. And you know, when it comes to quality as well as just Contact's heritage, this is the camera here that is going to get you the most street cred, and really it doesn't get better than the Contax T2. This is one of the most luxurious camera shooting experiences you have on a point and shoot. You have an aperture selection switch here on the front of the lens. Now, of course, this is going to fetch a higher price point, ranging between $1,000 to even $1,600, depending on where you get it. My recommendation, of course, folks, is going through the used markets again. I actually purchased this one in Tokyo. I got it for around $800 USD because of the conversion rate, and it's just an overall beast of a camera, very heavy, one of the most luxurious cameras you can get. I want to close this video off by talking about the price points of these cameras, because at the end of the day, whichever budget you have, my recommendation is to just purchase the best camera that you can afford. Every single camera on this list is going to give you good quality results. If you want to make great images though, it really is up to you and how you utilize the camera. If you give a beginner a $1,200 camera like the Contax T2, the images that they make from it may not be as great as someone who's been shooting for over 40 or 50 years, and you give them a cheap $25 point and shoot, for example, and that's because it doesn't matter what you're using, it's about how you use it. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Drop a like down below and also hit that subscribe button. Comment your favorite 35mm point and shoot film cameras, as well as your recommendations for anybody out there looking to get into film photography. But that's gonna wrap it up. Thank you for tuning into this video. I'll see you in the next one. As always, Minolta Gang.